Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here, and it's time for predictions. We got Critics' Choice, which are on Friday, the 7th, and we got PGA and DGA the day after, so we got to do some serious predicting here. Let's just get into it. Critics' Choice. Start from the top. Best film. So I know a lot of people are thinking about switching to the Brutalist. You know, a lot of people see the Critics' Choice as ducklings. They get along in a row. They go with what they think they're supposed to. The Golden Globes were seen before voting ended. Some may have submitted their ballots before the Golden Globes, as I did, and some may have submitted their ballot after. So the people who submitted their ballot after, you know, maybe they were more likely to go with the Brutalist. But I still think that Anora was going to win Critics' Choice all along. I feel that it was just their movie. The Brutalist does have the second most wins with critics groups, but Anora just feels like the one here. And I don't think that a Golden Globe win would stop them in the way that it might stop them with, you know, Demi Moore's speech, which we'll talk about. So I do think Anora is going to win Critics' Choice. It's not locked up. Could we see something else here? I mean, I don't think Conclave is. I think it's Anora Brutalist. That's all. Director. It's going to be Brady Corbet, okay? I actually think that Farjah could be number 2 because she has won a few Critics Awards, or maybe Sean Baker is number 2. But Brady Corbet is just, you know, he's looking like the director frontrunner. Critics' Choice are going to like this. I think they're going to have no problem giving him the award. For Ensemble, a lot of people seem to be struggling here. I am looking at the precursors and I'm saying Conclave dominated Ensemble Awards with critics groups, and if you look at their history, they don't have to align with SAG. Like, why is everyone predicting Wicked just because it's going to win SAG? Like, that's actually not how they work here. Could they go with Wicked? They did like the movie. Yeah, I guess so, but Conclave's just been like unanimously winning with these groups, and you know, aside from Sing Sing, it would be my pick here, personally. And I understand why people are going with Conclave, and I think it's going to win. Best Actress, I guess I haven't updated this in a while. Demi Moore versus Mikey Madison. Now, without the Golden Globe win, Mikey Madison, hand it off. If we were going by votes that were just counted before the win, it would be Mikey Madison. If we're going by votes counted after, I think it would lean Demi Moore. Now, should I do a weird calculation where I say, okay, let's say 50% of the votes were before, 50% were after, and the 50% before were leaning like maybe 75-25 Mikey Madison, and the ones after were leaning like 65-35 Demi Moore, and then it still goes to Mikey Madison because the lean was stronger before. I don't even know if we can do this. All I know is that I think that the Golden Globe speech mattered, and I remember when Jessica Chastain won the SAG Award, and then she won Critics' Choice. And the critics were going nuts for Kristen Stewart at the time. They weren't even considering Chastain. And they got in line. I don't know exactly what the overlap was. I think it was probably more significant. Like they had, you know, more of their voting window, you know, post that SAG speech. But I'm super torn here because I definitely think it could be either. And if Anora's winning the movie award, you know, it's very possible Mikey Madison comes along too. But I'm very hesitantly leaning Demi Moore here. I see that the community is going with Mikey Madison. I think the speech mattered because if we look, Critics Awards given out after that Golden Globe speech are leaning Demi Moore. Some of them are still going to Mikey Madison, sure, but they're leaning Demi Moore. She has caught up with Mikey Madison in terms of critics groups wins. She's jolting up to be like a competitive number 2. That's where I think we're heading here. So I have Demi Moore. In lead actor, Timothée Chalamet is looking good for SAG, but I think Adrian Brody looks likely to win here. Actually, I think Coleman Domingo even has a shot. If we're going, if we're going to have critics awards, he has, I think, about as much as Adrian Brody. But that would be surprising. I think that they're going to go with Brody. So that's the prediction here. I think everyone's doing that pretty much. Supporting actress. Now, we have to remember something here. Golden Globe voting ended a while back. It ended before the Oscar nominations. And of course, before the Carlos Sofia Gascon, Emilia Perez controversy. Now, were there other controversies about Emilia Perez? Sure. but they weren't making that much noise, as evidenced by the 13 nominations. So Critics' Choice, they like to get with the momentum. And if we're looking at the momentum of that time, Ariana Grande has momentum too, but it felt like Zoe Saldana was really going to be the one to win. And maybe she still is, okay? Maybe she comes along without the movie. I can't say yet. But I think Zoe Saldana feels like she was going to win at that moment, that she was becoming the front runner. She did win the Globe before voting ended. And, critics did give Ariana Grande a good amount of awards. They gave Zoe Saldana about as many awards. And what's important here is that critics groups like Wicked more than Amelia Perez by a lot. And the Critics' Choice like Amelia Perez more than other critics groups. Like, most critics groups weren't even nominating Amelia Perez in picture, director, and actress. And the fact that the Critics' Choice lean more towards Amelia Perez than the average critics group makes me think that, Saldana winning, despite the dislike in general by critics, shows that she was very, very strong anyway. So I think she's got strength here. I think she's going to win. But funny enough, the competitor here, Margaret Qualley, has actually the most critics groups wins out of any of these three. But I just feel that that's not actually something that's going to translate here with, I don't know why. It just doesn't feel like that's actually a competitive thing for the Oscar. And so the Critics' Choice wouldn't go for it. In a major category, I think that does kind of matter. Evidenced by like Kristen Stewart not winning for Spencer. Like, they don't want to go with somebody who's completely not winning. Supporting actor, I think it's Kieran Culkin, pretty obviously. These are not going to be the guys to turn it around. These are not going to be the guys to do a surprise here. Like, that's, he was winning a great deal of the precursors, so that's what's going to happen. Original screenplay is obviously Anora. We don't really need to have a discussion here. We don't really need to have a discussion here. Adapted screenplay, this is Conclave. Again, don't really need to have a discussion here. Everybody thinks that's happening because it is. Foreign language film. So I'm still here, like, again, if this was happening, if voting was happening right now, we could say that has a shot, but it wasn't. I'm Still Here wasn't even, like, winning a lot of critics groups for international feature. The movie that has the most international critics groups wins is All We Imagine Is Light. Now, again, the fact that has more wins than Amelia Perez shows that critics groups didn't really like Amelia Perez that much. But here we have a critics group who gave it 10 nominations and who gave All We Imagine Is Light just this one nomination. So, Amelia Perez is going to win this award. I don't think that they're going to deviate and give it to All We Imagine Is Light, which is the runner-up. It's not I'm Still Here, because they didn't see that movie. They've seen it now. They didn't see it before. All right. You got to remember when voting ended here. It was a while back. We're putting ourselves into a time machine. Okay. So that's Amelia Perez. It'd be shocking if it was All We Imagine Is Light. I would like for it to be All We Imagine Is Light, but it's, I don't think it's going to happen. I do think there's a chance though that, everybody, made it. It got 10 nominations. Forget it. Animated film is Wild Robot. Flo's winning a lot of awards, but the Critics' Choice is, they're pretty normy. They are pretty normy. BAFTA could go for Flo, Golden Globes could go for Flo, Oscar could go for Flo, but PGA and Critics' Choice are going with the little robot who could. Cinematography, this is my prediction. This is incorrect. So, many think it's The Brutalist. I think it's Nosferatu. I am purely going off of critics' precursors, in which this is out front. This just seems to be a category where critics are wanting to give it that win. Sure, they could go with The Brutalist and get in line with, what'll probably win the Oscar. But I think they're going to throw one out here. I mean, if there's any categories where the Critics' Choice would go rogue, it's the text. It's not in, the big acting categories and picture. Like, that, yeah. Remember when they gave score to Tar? And we're going to see this a couple other times as well. Coming up next is editing. What does the community think is winning? Challengers number 2, Dune number 1. It could be Dune. I think it's going to be Challengers. Again, Challengers overwhelmingly is winning critics groups awards for this. And yeah, they didn't nominate Challengers for Best Picture. They didn't nominate Nosferatu for Best Picture, but they did well in other categories. And this category is so not obvious as to what you would pick that I think you'd throw Challengers a bone. Did I vote for Challengers? I think I did. I could see Dune winning. I could see Dune getting a surprise win somewhere. Maybe it's production design. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's cinematography. I don't know. But, you know, again, maybe Dune will just win visual effects. So I think Challengers is going to win editing at Critics' Choice. And, you know, the people who watch only for like, oh, how does this help us with the Oscars? They're not going to be too happy. Production design, costume design, it's both wicked. Costumes is more obvious than production design. Production design, I guess you could say that Brutalist and Dune actually have like a chance here, but, or maybe even Nosferatu, which has a couple of critics wins, but I think Wicked's going to take both of these. They like the movie a lot. It just is up their alley. It just is on brand, I think, for them to give Wicked those awards. I feel pretty good about that. Hair and makeup is the substance. We don't need to talk. We don't need to have a discussion. I mean, they could do something a little Dumbo, like how they gave Barbie makeup, but that's not going to be what this is. They want this to be the Substances Award. I mean, the Substance had buzz in this category before it had buzz in any other category. So that's happening. That's not a question. Another category that's not a question is visual effects. That's Dune. Original score. The community thinks it's Challengers, and it is Challengers. This is, I think, even more overwhelmingly, you know, winning with critics groups than editing, and even won that Golden Globe. So there you go. I think that they're going to go for it there. It's what they would do. Song is a very tricky category. I don't have a hunch about anything. It can go a lot of ways. Let's just put it that way. El Mal has won a couple of critics groups. Kiss the Sky has won like one or two more, but there haven't been really enough precursors to say something very definitively. So what I'm going to do is like, I don't want this to be the category that like I get wrong. And then all of my other picks, which I feel more confident about, like are weighed down. I am just going to go with what's safe and say El Mal. But Kiss the Sky could win, which is silly. I would rather have El Mal win than Kiss the Sky. Or Compress Repress could win, which would be really fun if they gave it to Challengers. I don't know, it's 3 awards for Challengers, a little little too much. I would like that as well. And I would like if Will and Harper Go West won. And I would like if Beautiful That Way would also be a good pick. I voted for Harper and Will, I think. Young actor, actress. You know, it's been said, you know, that My Old Ass has done a bit of a campaign here. And, you know, it did get that WGA nomination. I think it didn't even get a DGA nomination for First Time Director. Something like that. So that is interesting. We should probably look out for Maisie Stella. But I'm going to go with Isaac Wong for Dee Dee. Hopefully people have seen the movie. And, you know, I mean, they both be good wins. So I wouldn't complain either way. But I just have a feeling it's going to be him. So look, you know, these predictions are too crazy. I think that the one that I'm least like consensus on is Nosferatu and cinematography. Only 5% of people are predicting that. You know, we'll see how that bears out for you versus me. But, you know, I think Anora's going to have a victory here. I don't think that Anora losing the Globe has anything to do with Critics' Choice. Like, I think that's silly. And Anora, I think, has something to it still. It may be enough for it to win Best Picture off of Critics' Choice and a WGA in a weird world where maybe Amelia Perez wins PGA or something. And it's like, well, that didn't help. And Wicked wins SAG. And it's like, well, that can just be that. So, you know, kind of neat, kind of interesting. Nora's checked off a lot of boxes. It hasn't, like, the only thing that happened is that Mikey Madison's not as strong and it didn't win any Globes. We take a step back. That's all that happened. I don't think that critics are cooling on it. I also think it doesn't have like a bunch of current momentum. We can just continue this conversation right into PGA here. All right. Before you gasp at what's on screen, let me go one by one. So let's continue talking about Anora. I think Anora, it has a lot going for it. And if we think about a preferential ballot, it's not hard to imagine that this very widely beloved film could get number 1s and 2 votes. But PGA doesn't tend to go with like the little tiny indie movie. They didn't do Spotlight. They didn't do Moonlight. They didn't do, well, Parasite wasn't like an indie movie, but you know, I guess it was the little movie in Hollywood standards. Coda won. Nomadland won. Nomadland was like a huge giant front runner. Coda was interesting, but that just won SAG Ensemble and had this crazy amount of momentum. And SAG hasn't happened yet. SAG is after PGA this year. So nothing can ride that momentum. And so I don't think Anora has the momentum factor. I think that's what's missing for it. I think I can't imagine it doing it well on a preferential and being in a lot of top 3s. So it's for sure a contender to win. And hey, if Anora just won PGA, I think we'd all kind of slap ourselves in the face for ever giving up on it, right? And saying, oh, the Golden Globe win, like that's it. That just losing Globes is all we care about now. But it's the momentum factor for me. I think there are other films that were, you know, buzzing up the conversation more. I think there's a case for The Brutalist for sure. However, my main thing is that The Brutalist feels like the Power of the Dog Roma movie that kind of falters here at PGA. And another thing that's bugging me is that The Brutalist underperformed at SAG, getting only 1 acting nomination. And typically the winner of PGA does very well at SAG and has no problem getting like 2 nominations or so. Usually the winner of the Producers Guild Award has won a big prize beforehand. This is almost always the case. And this could be, you know, SAG Ensemble, even like, you know, DGA or whatever. But this year, and maybe even we'll like be generous and like assume some awards. So we can assume maybe Wicked will win Ensemble and say The Brutalist is going to win DGA. Brutalist has a Globe win. Emilia Perez has a Globe win. This is why I feel like the conclave argument here, where, oh, it's going to do well on a preferential ballot, like it's never done well before, but now it's going to finally do well and win, even though it hasn't won anything all season, because preferential. I don't quite buy it. I do think I understand the argument. But I am not convinced that Conclave is like, well, it's just the movie that everyone's going to have at 2 or 3. Like, why isn't it a movie why isn't it like a 3 to 5 movie? Who is to say that it's not like 3 to 6, right? So I think that we might have to look at something that's won something before, or that has a little bit more like, you know, win proof behind it. And that could be The Brutalist, which, you know, as I said, there's problems there. Or it's Emilia Perez. Now, most people have backed off of Emilia Perez winning PGA because of the controversy. But let me tell you, January 30th was the last day of voting. January 30th was the day that Variety published an article, started to really catch on. And you could see this, you know, I even went to Google search trends to look this up. It was on January 30th that it started spiking. So that's the last day. Sure, it may have affected it a little bit. Maybe things were bubbling up a couple days before, quietly. But my hunch is that the producers are a little older and they're maybe less online. And, you know, I would even say after the Oscar nominations, Emilia Perez was getting blasted just in general for the content of the movie and being offensive to people. But that was kind of going on before. And it didn't affect the movie. So my prediction is Emilia Perez here, because I don't think it caught on quite on time. It is absolutely going to affect the film winning Best Picture. That's not happening anymore. I even put I'm Still Here in for international feature because I actually think it might matter a lot to people. And it's become inescapable, the controversy. And not only is it just the Carlos Sevilla Gascon controversy, but you know, it's always an opportunity to look at that and then say, oh, and then also everything else about Emilia Perez. And people are paying attention now to the negativity. But this will show us the portal into the world where if Carlos Sofia Gascon didn't tweet ever, we would be seeing Emilia Perez winning Best Picture. That will be proven true should Emilia Perez win PGA. Or my God, if it wins DGA. But I don't think so. So I just feel like that makes the most sense. Like, it had a big win. It had a big Globe win behind it. It had momentum. And, you know, it obviously had momentum at the moment. Like, the Oscar nominations, when that voting was happening, you know, just showering it. So I kind of think that I can make a good argument there. That it feels like the thing they would do. The Brutalist feels like the Roma Power of the Dog. Honora feels a little bit too small. Conclave doesn't have enough win proof. Wicked feels like Top Gun Maverick. A Complete Unknown is also unproven that it can win. And Amelia Perez is right there. And if it wins, of course, you know, we'll know that it would have won, but it's not going to win. So that's my prediction for PGA. And hey, it's going to be wild. I actually would think this is really, really funny. And it would be a good piece of chaos because then it would give even more uncertainty going into Oscar night. Perhaps the most uncertainty we've ever had, especially if Wicked wins ensemble. We're in the dark. We are in the dark. And that'll be fun. But I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love for it to go to a movie I like better. So there you go. PGA, that's what I think. DGA, I got Courbet. DGA, I got Courbet. It could be Audiard. Maybe that would have happened too. And first time film, we got Nickel Boys. I could say it's gonna be something else, but I'm not gonna bother entertaining that. And there you have it. That's PGA DGA Critics' Choice predictions. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Do you think Amelia Perez would have won without the controversy?